No shouting, no insults, just 5 minutes of calm precision, and one of the most powerful political figures was silenced on live TV. It started with just 5 minutes, but those 5 minutes changed everything. It wasn't supposed to be anything special, just another live political debate, the kind of heated exchange that fills cable news every night. But what happened that day would echo far beyond the studio walls and send shockwaves across the internet within hours. Pam Bondi, the former Attorney General of Florida and longtime Trump ally, walked onto the stage with her usual confidence. She had done this countless times before, defending her political side, batting down criticism, and walking away victorious. Her smile was sharp, her tone polished. She was ready. The studio lights were blinding, cameras rolling, the crowd murmuring in anticipation. Across from her sat Jasmine Crockett, a rising star in Congress, known for her calm intelligence and fearless debating style. She wasn't loud, she wasn't flashy, but anyone who'd seen her speak before knew, when Jasmine talks, people listen. The moderator introduced the topic of the night: government ethics and double standards. Immediately, Pam Bondi jumped in. She leaned forward, her hands slicing through the air as she spoke. Her tone was sharp, almost rehearsed, the kind of delivery that sounds more like a defense attorney than a public servant. She accused Democrats of hypocrisy. She claimed the justice system was being weaponized against conservatives. She even defended Trump's ongoing legal battles, calling them politically motivated nonsense. The audience listened in silence. Some nodded, others rolled their eyes. It felt like a typical political back and forth, until Jasmine Crockett decided it was time to speak. She didn't raise her hand, she didn't interrupt rudely. She simply leaned forward, her voice cutting through the tension with perfect precision. "Pam," she began quietly, "you can't talk about justice when you helped destroy it." The entire room went silent. Even the moderator froze. For a moment, all you could hear was the hum of the studio lights. Pam Bondi blinked, stunned. Her confident smile disappeared, replaced by a look of disbelief. And that's when it hit. The moment the energy shifted completely. Jasmine didn't shout, she didn't insult. She just spoke the truth, calmly, directly, and with receipts waiting to back it all up. Bondi tried to regain her footing, forcing a nervous laugh. "Oh, please," she said, "don't start with your talking points." But Jasmine wasn't playing politics. She was about to reveal something much bigger. She reminded everyone, live on air, about Pam Bondi's record as Florida's Attorney General, about how her office once received a donation from Trump's foundation right before she dropped an investigation into Trump University. The audience's reaction was instant: murmurs, gasps, whispers spreading across the room like a wave. Pam tried to interrupt, but Jasmine raised her hand slightly and kept going. "You talk about justice, Pam," she said, steady and fearless, "but justice isn't for sale, not for money, not for power, and not for political favor." Her words hit harder than any shout could have. Each sentence landed with precision, like arrows striking one after another. Pam shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her earlier confidence fading fast. She glanced toward the moderator, as if looking for a lifeline, but none came. Everyone wanted to hear what Jasmine would say next. Bondi tried again, accusing Jasmine of being partisan and emotional. That was another mistake. Jasmine smiled slightly, not out of arrogance, but with quiet disbelief. "Emotional?" she repeated. "No, Pam, I'm not emotional. I'm informed. The only emotion here is your fear of being held accountable." The studio erupted. Applause, cheers. Even the moderator struggled to bring the room back to order. Pam's voice wavered as she tried to respond, but her usual talking points now sounded hollow. Her confidence had drained away. The audience wasn't buying it, not this time. For the next few moments, Jasmine calmly finished her point. No shouting, no gloating, just a quiet, powerful takedown that left her opponent without a single word. And when the moderator finally moved to the next question, Pam Bondi sat silently, eyes down, jaw tight, clearly shaken.
What was meant to be a friendly panel debate had turned into a 5-minute masterclass in truth-telling. Within hours, clips of the exchange were everywhere. People were tweeting, posting, sharing, and commenting, calling it one of the most unforgettable political confrontations of the year. And at the center of it all was that single, perfect line. Pam, you can't talk about justice when you helped destroy it. That was the sentence that silenced Pam Bondi. And in just 5 minutes, Jasmine Crockett made history.
Without raising her voice, Jasmine Crockett began her takedown, not with insults, not with attitude, but with something far more powerful: the truth. She didn't flinch, she didn't rush. Every word, every pause, every breath carried purpose. The audience could feel it, that electric shift in energy when one person completely takes control of the room. Jasmine calmly reached into her folder and pulled out a few sheets of paper, not for show, but for proof. Documents, public records, official statements, evidence that had been sitting out in the open for years, just waiting for someone brave enough to bring it up live on national TV. As she glanced down at the papers, her tone stayed calm, deliberate, surgical. "Pam," she began softly, "when you were Attorney General of Florida, your office accepted a $25,000 donation from the Trump Foundation, just days before your office decided not to pursue an investigation into Trump University." The air left the room. Bondi's eyes widened slightly. It was a fact she didn't expect to be dragged into this conversation, especially not so directly. Jasmine continued, her voice steady as a surgeon's hand. "You said you were defending justice," she said, her eyes locked on Bondi. "But tell me, was that justice, or was that just good timing for a donation?" The air left the room. Bondi's eyes widened slightly. It was a fact she didn't expect to be dragged into this conversation, especially not so directly. Jasmine continued, her voice steady as a surgeon's hand. "You said you were defending justice," she said, her eyes locked on Bondi. "But tell me, was that justice, or was that just good timing for a donation?" The moderator tried to step in, but Jasmine wasn't finished. She had more, much more. Piece by piece, she laid out the story. Pam Bondi's record as Attorney General, her public defense of Trump during the 2020 impeachment, her interviews on major networks where she called investigations witch hunts, even while avoiding questions about her own ethics. Crockett's tone never changed. She wasn't yelling, she wasn't mocking, she was educating. And that's what made it hit so much harder. "Pam, people like you are the reason Americans don't trust the system anymore," Jasmine said, her voice echoing in the silence. "You talk about justice, but justice isn't for sale." That line hit like a hammer. The audience murmured, shifting in their seats. Even the cameras seemed to zoom in closer, catching Bondi's tightening jaw, her forced smile fading into unease. Pam tried to interject, her tone suddenly defensive. "Congresswoman, that's not true. I've always acted within the law." But Jasmine didn't stop. She waited, let Bondi finish her sentence halfway, then slid another paper across the table, a printed record from a public ethics report. "I'm sure you did," Jasmine said, her tone sharp but polite. "And the law, unfortunately, often protects the powerful more than the people." Gasps, a few scattered claps, and just like that, the momentum shifted even more. The audience wasn't neutral anymore. They were engaged. They were reacting, whispering, leaning forward in their seats. It wasn't just a debate now. It was a reckoning. One woman calmly confronting another with the kind of truth that doesn't need volume to make noise. Pam Bondi tried again, this time with the same lines she'd used for years. She accused Jasmine of spreading misinformation. She tried to deflect, changing the topic to Democratic corruption. But every time, Jasmine had a counter. Clean, calm, factual. "You're quoting headlines, Pam," Jasmine said. "I'm quoting documents. There's a difference." The crowd erupted in applause. Even the moderator couldn't hide a small smirk. For every excuse Bondi made, Jasmine had a receipt. For every defensive jab, Jasmine answered with another fact, sharper, clearer, and backed by record.
Pam's confident posture started to crumble. She leaned back in her chair, her shoulders tightening, her tone growing higher, shakier. She tried to laugh it off. "You sure came prepared, didn't you?" But Jasmine's reply was instant and deadly calm. "It's not about being prepared, Pam. It's about being honest." You could hear the room exhale all at once, that collective reaction people have when they know they've just witnessed something powerful. Pam looked down, visibly rattled, the once assured glow gone from her face. The same woman who had strutted into the studio ready for a fight was now struggling to find her words. Jasmine, on the other hand, sat quietly, hands folded, posture perfect, waiting for the moderator to move on. She didn't need to say another word. Her silence now said more than any argument ever could. The camera zoomed in one last time, Pam Bondi blinking, lips pressed together, as if searching for something to say, but the words never came. And that's when everyone watching, both in the studio and online, realized what they had just seen. This wasn't a debate. This was an exposure. A calm, methodical dismantling of hypocrisy, done not with anger, but with precision. And Jasmine Crockett, in just a few short minutes, had done what few people ever could. She had silenced Pam Bondi, not by overpowering her, but by outclassing her.
Then came the moment everyone remembers, the moment when the debate stopped being about politics and became something much deeper. Pam Bondi, who had entered the studio brimming with confidence, was now visibly frustrated. Her hands moved faster, her voice grew louder. Her polished TV composure began to crack, just enough for the cameras to catch it. She leaned forward, her tone sharp and defensive. "You're being biased, Congresswoman," Pam snapped. "You're being emotional and disrespectful." The room felt tense again. You could feel the audience's collective inhale, that uneasy silence before impact. Everyone knew what was coming next would either make or break the moment. And then Jasmine Crockett did what she does best. She turned a simple accusation into a historic response. She didn't flinch. She didn't roll her eyes. She didn't even raise her voice. Instead, she smiled, slowly, deliberately, the kind of smile that says, "You just made a big mistake." "Emotional?" she repeated softly. "Pam, I'm not emotional. I'm informed. The only emotion here is your fear of being held accountable." Boom. That line didn't just land, it shook the room. The audience gasped. Some clapped instinctively. Even the moderator froze for a second, trying to decide whether to intervene or just let the moment breathe. Pam Bondi blinked, clearly stunned. Her mouth opened slightly, as if to respond, but nothing came out. And just like that, the balance of power in the room completely flipped. Jasmine Crockett didn't look away. She stayed calm, composed, unbothered. Every part of her body language said, "I'm not intimidated by you." Meanwhile, Pam tried desperately to regain control. She began repeating herself, her talking points spilling out like a broken record. This is about fairness, about justice, about hypocrisy. But now it sounded hollow, robotic, rehearsed. The emotion she tried to accuse Jasmine of having was now radiating from her instead. Crockett waited patiently. Every time Bondi spoke, Jasmine countered gently but decisively, slicing through her words with logic and poise. "Fairness," Jasmine said, "isn't about defending corruption, it's about confronting it. Justice," she continued, "isn't about protecting the powerful, it's about protecting the people they forget." Each statement hit like a thunderclap. Pam's usual confidence had vanished. Her voice cracked slightly. Her eyes darted toward the moderator for help. But the moderator could only say, "Let's allow Congresswoman Crockett to finish her point." And that was it, the final nail. Jasmine didn't drag it out. She didn't humiliate Bondi personally. She simply ended with a line so firm and final that there was nothing left to say. "If the truth feels disrespectful," she said, "then maybe it's time to re-examine the truth." The audience erupted. Applause, cheers, even whistles filled the studio.
Pam looked stunned, frozen in her seat, lips pressed tightly together, as if she couldn't decide whether to argue or stay silent. But her silence said it all. The moderator, clearly flustered, cleared his throat and tried to move on. "All right, let's proceed to our next topic," he said, his voice barely cutting through the noise. But it didn't matter. Nobody cared about the next topic anymore. Because everyone in that room, and soon millions online, knew the debate was over. Pam Bondi, one of Trump's most vocal defenders, had just been verbally dismantled in front of a live audience by a woman who never once raised her voice. The contrast was stunning. Pam's loud frustration versus Jasmine's calm clarity. One shouting, the other teaching. One defending power, the other speaking truth. When the camera stopped rolling, the chatter in the studio was electric. Producers, audience members, even the makeup crew, everyone was whispering about what they just witnessed. "Did you hear that line? She destroyed her without even trying. That was the calmest takedown I've ever seen." And as clips started circulating online within minutes, social media exploded. People were cutting the moment into short reels, adding captions like, "The look on Bondi's face says it all." By the end of the night, the clip had already crossed 1 million views. The phrase, "I'm not emotional, I'm informed," was trending across platforms, quoted like a mantra. Comment sections filled up with praise for Jasmine's composure, her professionalism, and the way she used logic instead of anger to win the moment. Even critics had to admit she handled herself with precision and grace. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi said nothing. No statement, no tweet, just silence. The same silence that had filled the studio when Jasmine Crockett ended her argument. And that silence spoke louder than anything she could have said. In under 5 minutes, Jasmine Crockett hadn't just won a debate, she had ended one. Pam Bondi came in to control the conversation, but Jasmine Crockett walked out having owned the moment.
Within hours of the broadcast, the internet had already made up its mind. Clips of the exchange began flooding every social media platform imaginable. TikTok, Twitter, YouTube Shorts, Facebook Reels, everywhere you looked, Jasmine Crockett's calm, surgical takedown was playing on repeat. Someone uploaded a 15-second snippet with the caption, "When you bring facts to a feelings fight." Within minutes, it hit 100,000 views. Then came another clip. This one zoomed in on Pam Bondi's stunned expression as Jasmine delivered her now iconic line, "I'm not emotional, I'm informed. The only emotion here is your fear of being held accountable." That clip, it blew up. 10 million views, 20 million, 50 million. Every comment section looked the same, full of fire emojis, clapping hands, and people quoting Jasmine's line like it was a movie moment. "This is how you handle misinformation." She didn't yell, she educated. Pam looked like she saw her reputation crumble in real time. Across Twitter, the hashtags #PamBondiSilenced and #JasmineCrockettTakedown started trending within hours. It didn't matter which side of the political spectrum people were on, everyone was talking about it. Some praised Jasmine's composure, others dissected Pam's body language, and some just replayed that 5-minute clip over and over, mesmerized by the sheer confidence Jasmine displayed while staying perfectly calm. TikTok creators jumped in too. Reaction videos filled the For You page, creators pointing, pausing, and shouting, "That's the moment, right there." Others remixed the clip into motivational edits with cinematic music and bold text that read, "Truth always wins." One creator added dramatic background music from Inception and slowed the footage down right as Jasmine said, "Justice isn't for sale." That edit alone racked up over 12 million views in a day. Even late-night comedians picked it up. Clips of the takedown were played during monologues on The Daily Show and Late Night with Seth Meyers. One host joked, "Pam Bondi went into that debate with talking points and left with no point at all." Meanwhile, news outlets couldn't ignore it either. Major headlines appeared across networks and digital magazines. Pam Bondi faces brutal reality check from Rep. Jasmine Crockett. 5 minutes that shook conservative TV.
When Calm Meets Chaos, How Jasmine Crockett Mastered the Art of Debate. Even journalists who typically avoided covering viral debates were forced to acknowledge that this one was different. It wasn't just entertainment, it was symbolic. Because what people saw wasn't just a clash of opinions, it was a clash of eras, the old style of shouting and deflecting versus the new era of fact-driven composure. And right in the middle of it all was Jasmine Crockett standing tall and calm. Despite her name trending in over 20 countries, Jasmine didn't do interviews or post long statements. She simply opened Twitter, typed one short sentence, and hit post. When the truth speaks, lies go silent. No hashtags, no emojis, no self-promotion. Just that one tweet. And that tweet alone broke the internet. Over 1 million likes in the first 24 hours, thousands of retweets and screenshots spreading everywhere. People were quoting it like a life lesson. Some even made wallpapers and motivational posters out of the line. News anchors referenced it on air. Educators shared it in classrooms. Activists used it in speeches. It had become more than a tweet. It was a statement of principle. Meanwhile, on the other side of the screen, Pam Bondi's silence grew louder by the hour. Her official Twitter account went quiet. No posts, no clarifications, no spin. She skipped her usual TV appearances. Reporters reached out for comments, but her team declined every request. Days passed, still nothing. And that silence, that deep, awkward silence, spoke volumes. For someone known for fiery defenses and endless interviews, Bondi's sudden disappearance told the world everything it needed to know. People noticed. Memes popped up with the caption, "Pam's Wi-Fi went out the moment truth entered the chat." Others joked, Pam's lawyers told her to stay quiet. For once, she listened. But beneath the humor was something real, something powerful. The world had just witnessed accountability in real time. A politician stood firm, a lobbyist fell silent, and millions of viewers saw what happens when composure meets corruption. By the end of the week, major publications were calling it a modern political moment, short, viral, and unforgettable. Pam Bondi's name had become a trending example of what happens when arrogance collides with truth. And Jasmine Crockett? She wasn't just trending, she was transforming the conversation. Because in a world where shouting often wins airtime, Jasmine Crockett proved something extraordinary. That calm truth, spoken clearly and fearlessly, can still shake the entire internet.
In the days that followed, the world didn't just talk about who won the debate, they talked about what it meant. Because that night, something bigger than a political clash happened, something that went beyond parties, platforms, or talking points. Jasmine Crockett's 5-minute exchange with Pam Bondi wasn't just a viral clip, it became a symbol of accountability, a moment when someone, calm and fearless, looked power in the face and didn't blink. Across America, in classrooms, coffee shops, and comment sections, people replayed the video again and again, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real, unscripted, honest, powerful. It reminded everyone of something they'd almost forgotten, that truth doesn't need to shout to be heard, it just needs to stand tall and speak clearly. Political commentators began calling it a generational shift, a new era where younger, fact-driven leaders no longer bow to media pressure or political manipulation. They don't play by the old rules, they rewrite them. And Jasmine Crockett had just shown the world exactly how that's done. Her calm composure, her confidence, and her absolute command of the facts, it was surgical. Every sentence landed with precision. Every pause carried weight. She never raised her voice. She didn't have to. In an age where outrage dominates the airwaves, Jasmine's quiet authority cut through the noise like a blade of light. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. She showed the world that real power doesn't come from volume. It comes from truth, discipline, and preparation. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi's silence became its own story, a silence louder than any speech she could have given. The woman once known for fiery TV debates and bold defenses of the Trump administration had suddenly vanished from the spotlight.
No tweets, no statements, no interviews. And that quiet, that deep, awkward silence spoke volumes. Headlines began to shift tone. They didn't just cover the moment, they dissected it. They analyzed how Bondi's confidence evaporated under scrutiny, how Crockett's discipline turned chaos into clarity, and how the truth, once released, could not be put back in the cage. One political analyst summed it up perfectly in a late-night segment. Pam Bondi didn't just lose an argument, she lost her narrative. That line echoed across social media because everyone understood exactly what it meant. For years, Bondi had crafted her image carefully, confident, sharp, loyal, untouchable. But in just 5 minutes, Jasmine had stripped all that away, not with anger, but with undeniable facts. Not by shouting, but by standing tall. From that day forward, every time Pam Bondi's name came up in a political debate, someone always brought up that clip. The moment when Jasmine Crockett flipped the script so completely, it felt like watching history repeat itself. People started calling it the 5-minute reckoning, because that's all it took. 5 minutes to turn arrogance into silence. 5 minutes to show what true leadership looks like. And that's the part that stuck with people. Because Jasmine didn't win by being louder. She won by being clearer, by knowing her facts, by standing firm in her truth, even when the cameras were rolling and the pressure was on. She proved that strength isn't in dominance, it's in discipline. That you don't have to crush someone to defeat them, you just have to expose the truth and let it speak for itself. In that sense, Jasmine Crockett didn't just silence Pam Bondi, she silenced a whole era of performative politics, where style mattered more than substance and noise drowned out reason. And that's why, months later, people still replay that moment. They still quote her lines. They still post the clip with captions like, 5 minutes, that's all it took. Facts don't fear the spotlight. When truth speaks, lies go silent. Each replay isn't just nostalgia, it's a reminder that words still matter, that truth still wins, and that courage, when calm and fearless, can change everything. Pam Bondi walked into that studio confident, but she walked out a cautionary tale. Jasmine Crockett walked in prepared, and she walked out a symbol of what happens when truth finally stands its ground. So yes, Pam Bondi was silenced, not by shouting, not by insults, but by truth, spoken with calm, unstoppable precision. And that's why millions are still watching, still sharing, still whispering the same line. 5 minutes, that's all it took for Jasmine Crockett to make history.